The Pahalgam terrorists checked the ID cards of the tourists, pulled their pants down, asked them to recite kalma, and killed those who were not Muslims. The biggest terrorist attack targeting civilians since the 26/11 Mumbai terror attack that has killed more than 2 dozen civilians in Pahalgam and Kashmir frames one of the most significant internal security challenges for our country. The Pahalgam attack has revived the ghost of the past in a terror playbook that security officials said is all too familiar. Now let me take you to the history of such incidents in Kashmir that targeted non-Muslims, especially Kashmiri Hindus, and let me give you facts and only facts. The thing that we have forgotten must be brought to the front. Everyone in the system seems to hide the truth, and I'll be quoting Anand Ranganathan here. Why do they want to hide the truth about the Nadi Marg massacre, where terrorist Zia Mustafa lined up 23 unsuspecting Kashmiri Hindus and shot them point blank? And as he was escaping, he heard a baby cry, and then the baby became the 24th victim. Why do they want to hide this? Why do they want to hide the truth about Girija Tiku, who was raped and cleaved in two by a mechanical saw while she was still alive? Why do they want to hide the truth about BK Ganju, who hid inside a rice barrel when jihadis came looking for him after his Muslim neighbor informed on him? Ganju was shot dead, rice laced with his blood, and was fed to his wife. Why do they want to hide the truth about the slogans that were raised from the mosques on the night of 19 January 1990 that went like Relieve, Tasleem, Galeeb, Convert, Run or Die, Death to the Kafirs, Pandits go but leave your women behind? Why do they want to hide the truth about Chitsinghpura massacre that killed 35 to 36 Sikh villagers to rise communal tensions? And there are multiple sort of massacres that have been carried out in the past that have targeted especially non-Muslims. For example, the 1997 Sangrampura massacre, where 7 Kashmiri Hindus were lined up and shot dead by militants in the village. Then there was the 1998 Vandhama massacre, where 23 Kashmiri Pandits, including women and children, were killed by militants disguised as Indian Army soldiers. Then there was Prankot massacre, where 29 Hindus, including women and children, were beheaded by the militants after refusing to convert to Islam. Then list doesn't end here. There was 1998 Chhapnari massacre, where 26 Hindus were killed by militants while returning from a wedding ceremony. Then there was 2003 Nadi Marg massacre that occurred in Nadi Marg village in the Pulwama district. And 24 Kashmiri Pandits, including women and children, were killed by militants dressed in army uniforms. The list doesn't end here. There was 2006 Doda massacre, where 57 Hindus were killed in 2 separate attacks by the militants. Then there was the Amarnath Yatra attack that occurred in 2017 in the location of Anantnag district, where 7 Hindu pilgrims were killed and 19 others were injured while militants attacked a bus that was returning from Amarnath shrine. They always want to show the other side of the genocide. And what do they portray? Zia Mustafa, the perpetrator of the Nadi Marg massacre, was a compounder at a hospital. Remember that 5 years ago, the Supreme Court rejected reopening the cases of criminal atrocities against Kashmiri Hindus because too much time had lapsed. Yes, you heard it right. The justice is now weighed against the time. The elapsed time is the elapsed justice. In the December of 2022, the Supreme Court reiterated its previous stand of not opening cases of atrocities against the Kashmiri Hindus. The misery is compounded by the rubbing of salt on the wounds of victims by appeasing and eulogizing separatist leaders like Syed Shah Gilani. From journalists to politicians to judges to intellectuals to celebrities, anyone who has had anything to say about the problem of Kashmir had to break bread with this man, knowing fully well that he was equally responsible for the Kashmiri Hindu genocide. He was also responsible for the ethnic cleansing. So let me quote some words of Gilani from his book Nawa-e-Hurriyat. For example, he has said, and I quote him, India is a bigger enemy of Islam and Muslim even more than Israel. Muslims are a qawm wholly separate from the Hindus. Muslims are a complete separate nation on the basis of their religion, culture, civilization, customs and practices. Their nationalism and the foundation of their unity cannot be based on their homeland, race, language, color or the economic system. The basis of their unity in Islam is Islam and Islam alone. Pakistan was created for the hegemony of Islam and for establishing an Islamic system. Pakistan is land and dreams of all Kashmiri because it has won in the name of Islam. Accession to India would result in the Kashmiri Muslims having to live perpetually under the Hindu slavery. So this was the attitude of Ahmad Shah Gilani towards the Kashmiri Hindus and his position on the Islamic standpoint. Kashmir must become an Islamic state. Our goal is the establishment of Islamic government. Our struggle is for the sake of Islam. Islam removes people from the slavery of people, but secularism makes the people slaves of Delhi. This was explicitly stated in his work. The ongoing struggle against Indian rule in Kashmir is not an ordinary war, but rather a jihad. I plead with the Afghan Mujahideen to come forward to help liberate us from India, and by doing so express their bond of Islamic brotherhood and religious commitment. In the light of the Quran, it has now become incumbent on the people of Pakistan to engage in jihad in Kashmir. In fact, participating in the Kashmir jihad is now a binding duty incumbent not just on the Pakistani Muslims, but rather the entire worldwide Muslim Ummah. Most of the Muslims have talked about the atrocities pulled onto Palestine and its people. They talk about human and religious rights. But when have you heard from them when they spoke out against the atrocities committed by the Pakistanis against the Ahmadiyas or the Baluchs? Leave aside the Hindu and Christian minorities. When have you heard them speak out against China, that has interned more than 1 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps and has feeding them pork? When have you heard them speak about against the brutal trampling of human rights of Dalits, Gorkhas, women, Sikh refugees and homosexuals in Kashmir because of Articles 370 and 35A? But I will tell you when they do speak out, when their power and authority are questioned. Moving further to one of the most famous dynasts of Kashmir, Miss Mehbooba Mufti, one would be hard-pressed from not a bigger hypocrite than her. From choosing a rape accused as an election candidate, to threatening rivers of blood if 370 was abrogated, to shedding tears and mourning the death of terrorist Wani, to saying others that the tricolor will be abrogated if 370 was abrogated, to threaten sedition by saying, why would a Muslim majority state want to stay with India, to wanting to introduce punishment according to the Sharia law, like death by stoning in Kashmir. Miss Mufti has scaled all methane-spewing landfill summits. 30 years have gone, but we haven't progressed from those ugly, inhospitable transit camps that dot the Kashmir landscape at Sheikhpura, Nathnusa, Veerwan, Vesu, Mattan and Havi. In Anantnag's Vesu transit camp, Kashmiri Hindus who want to flee, but they can't because they fear their lives are being kept locked up. They cannot even step out to buy essentials like milk and medicine. Is this the kind of freedom promised to the natives of the land, while the Rohingyas enjoy unfettered movement in the near vicinity? According to the data from the Home Ministry, only 17% of the promised houses of Kashmiri Hindus have been completed in the last 6 years. Only 5928 Kashmiri Hindus have been appointed through the Prime Minister's job scheme. The number of Kashmiri Hindus and their refugees is 7 lakh. A data derived from the data provided by the Government of India under the aegis of the Ministry of Home Affairs. It states that 62,000 families living in Kashmir in the aftermath of the Kashmiri Hindu genocide left Kashmir, and they have called themselves Gandhi without guns. And that is the singular reason why no one cares for their plight. Because this nation hears complaints through the barrel of a gun, not the ink of a pen. This nation believes inaction is a medicine. It believes that the time heals. It believes wounds do not fester. It believes that exile never return. This nation waits for death to rid its people from the remembrances. This nation wishes the Kashmiri Hindus all happiness and joy in the afterlife. Kashmiri Hindus are Jews. But unfortunately, India is not Israel. And this is not only limited to Kashmir. There have been multiple massacre incidences across India. The Godhra riots is one such example. Now, the terror attack that happened on 22nd April is not to be seen only as an attack for religion, but also to be seen in a broader geopolitical perspective. This event unfolded when Vice President of USA J.D. Vance is on a short tour to India. Such attacks have been carried out in the past in presence of important leaders, like on the night of March 20, 2000, the massacre of 36 Sikh villagers in Chitsinghpura village of Anantnag district in Jammu and Kashmir by Pakistan-sponsored militants came just ahead of US President Bill Clinton's visits from March 21 to 25. 2 years later, when US Assistant Secretary of State for South Asian Affairs, Christina B. Rocca, was visiting India, a terrorist attack took place on May 14, 2002 near Kaluchak in J&K. Three militants attacked a Himachal Road Transport Corporation bus from Manali to Jammu and killed 7 people. They then threatened the family quarters of the army and fired indiscriminately, killing 23 people, including 10 children, 8 women, and 5 army personnel. 34 people were injured in the attack. The Chitsangbpura massacre was done in the Sikh-dominated Chitsinghpura in Anantnag district, where terrorists wearing mask and army uniform rounded up and killed 39 Sikhs, with some of them being mere children. The attackers, after they had done the attack, left the area chanting Jai Hind and shouting like Bharat Mata ki Jai to instill the fear that this was done by Indian army personnel. Later, 26/11 terrorist David Headley confessed to it being a Lashkar-e-Taiba attack along with the arrested terrorists, in later years confessing to it being the work of militants wearing army fatigues. This attack should not only be content on the lights of religious intolerance, but also to save India's geopolitical image. Till when we are going to stop? Till when we are going to just watch and make films like Kashmir Files while not taking the regular and particular action towards the plight of the Kashmiri Hindus and the tourists visiting there? An action must be taken, and the action must be foretold. Thank you. Jai Hind.